So there are three dimensions of behavior, and that just means types of measurement. So the three fundamental properties are repeatability or countability, and that just means that behavior can be counted. The temporal extent, which means duration, behaviors happen for a length of time, and temporal locus, which means they happen at a point of time when the behavior occurs. So there's different types of measurements that go along with each of these three fundamental properties, the dimensions of behavior. So we'll give some examples, define them, and then show some graphs for each of them. So we'll start with repeatability or countability. The main measurement that goes along with this is frequency count or rate, and that just means the number of responses emitted during an observation period. So if you observed four closed fist hits within an observation period of an hour, that would be 4 episodes in 1 hour as your rate. So it's always reported as a number per standard unit of time. It is more meaningful than count alone than just frequency. So if I just said 4 hits, it's not giving that observation period. Our rate includes the observation period, so hits per amount of time. Guidelines for using rate take complexity of response into account, useful measure for free operants, not appropriate for responses within discrete trials, and not appropriate for continuous behavior over extended period of time. So frequency count or rate may not be appropriate when measuring something such as a tantrum because that has it's a continuous behavior over a period of time. So typically it would mean 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes of quote unquote tantrum behavior. Whereas a frequency count of 4 episodes of tantrum behavior per 3-hour session doesn't necessarily give us as much detail for that continuous behavior. If you click the linked graphs below, you will see an example of rate per hour, a multiple baseline using rate per hour, and a reversal design using frequency per day. So go ahead and take a look at those. When we graph frequency and rate, the x-axis is over a period of time, and the y-axis is our number of occurrences. We also can measure acceleration, which is the change in rate of responding per unit of time. We use a standard acceleration chart in order to represent this measurement, and it captures the behavior acceleration and deceleration. If the slope is increasing, that means the rate of the behavior is accelerating, so it's increasing. If the slope is decreasing, that means the rate of the behavior is decreasing over time, deceleration. There is a acceleration graph with that link as well. The next measurement of behavior is temporal extent, meaning the amount of time a behavior occurs. So the typical measurement for this is duration. So we can measure the entire duration that a behavior occurs. So from the start of the behavior to the stop of the behavior. So that tantrum example that I gave earlier is a good example of that. So we would take the duration of each occurrence, and then we'd report in standard time units. Like we were talking about with tantrum, count and duration measures can provide very different pictures of the same behavior. So you want to make sure that you're applying the correct measurement to that targeted behavior. There is a duration graph example linked there as well. The next measurement of behavior based on that dimension for temporal locus is response latency and inner response time. So this is stating that a behavior happens during a period at a specific time. So response latency is the measurement from the onset of a stimulus and the initiation of the response. So if I said, touch your nose, it would be the amount of time from the end of that stimulus to the initiation of the learner touching their nose. So it's reported as a time, so mean, median, or range of time. and it would be the amount of time again from touch your nose until the child actually touching their nose. Interresponse time is slightly different. It is the amount of time that elapses between two consecutive instances of a response class. So if we wanted to measure the amount of time between learner touching their nose, we would measure the amount of time from, so that was about 1 or 2 seconds, and then we'd measure the response, the time between the same response class, so of touching the nose. It's a direct measure of temporal locus, but it's also related to rate as well. And again, reported as mean, median, or range.